hanging with you, not healthy.
And we are back. I tend to start all of my videos by remarking on how long it has been since the last time I made one, and this time is going to be no different, but genuinely it has been a long time since I last made a video. 2 months, in fact, which I blame on my PhD program, which I'll get into in a second. But I'm happy that I have more time now to make videos again, as I find it both relaxing and educational. In this video, I'll be playing some Resident Evil 4 on my M3 MacBook Air in the background, but I will be chatting about several unrelated topics. As usual, use the timestamps to jump around if you'd like. Topics will include an update on my PhD program, thoughts on recent Mac gaming related news, an introduction to a new hobby of mine, and anticipations for the upcoming Apple events. So let's jump into it.
There's something fishy about him.
So beginning with the PhD program, if you haven't already heard me mention it, then, FYI, I started this PhD program last September. It is officially a geography and environment PhD program, but I'm sort of hoping to put my own spin on the research, incorporating other research interests of mine. I'll start with a quick rundown of, like how do you get into a PhD program, what it typically entails, and all of that. This depends greatly on where you plan on doing a graduate degree, obviously, so don't assume that my journey is like anyone else's. I am located in Canada, by the way. So to work your way up to a PhD, you need to begin with an undergraduate degree. These can range from, 3 to 5 years in length, full time, and you will graduate with something like a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Mathematics, whatever. Personally, I have a Bachelor of Arts. After you complete your bachelor's degree, you then have the option of continuing your college or university studies with a graduate degree. The conventional route is to then do a master's degree, which is anywhere from 1 to 3 years in length, and then do a PhD if you decide to continue. However, some programs offer the option to bypass the master's degree by enrolling immediately into a PhD program as soon as you complete your undergrad. This is rare, however, and it's not exactly recommended as students really haven't had much time to, sort of develop. A PhD program or a doctoral program is then anywhere from 3 to 5 years full time. So end to end, bachelor's to PhD, you're looking at around, like 8 to 10 years of full-time study. Now for what a PhD program entails, and I'll be honest, it isn't entirely clear to me at this point, but I will relay what I know given my 6 months in the program that I'm currently in. And again, no two programs will be alike, so just keep that in mind. So for my program, I first need to fulfill a course requirement. 3 courses in total, 2 are electives, and 1 is compulsory. The 2 electives are for exploring, your research interests, and the compulsory course teaches theory largely. The coursework must be completed in the first year of your program. After the coursework are the comprehensive exams, or what most simply referred to as comps. The purpose of comps is to evaluate a student's knowledge of core concepts in the field of study that student is in, and to prepare them for independent research. It usually entails both a written and an oral component, and in addition to actually, preparing for those exams, typically it consumes about a year of the program. So once a student passes comps and then, they're considered a doctoral candidate and can begin their independent research, usually they have 2+ years left of their PhD program. Currently, I have completed my coursework, And before moving into comps preparation, I will be reflecting on my research direction and preparing a sort of proposal for my advisors. The proposal will essentially outline what I want to research and how I plan on going about doing it. I will also need to look into applying for research funding before beginning comps, as this needs to be applied for essentially as soon as possible. Now for a quick update on my program progression so far. As I said, I have only really completed coursework. The compulsory theory course was interesting, not exactly my cup of tea. However, I did make a bit of a name for myself in the course with the other students in my cohort and with several of the professors in the department, because I was quite outspoken in the class and frequently got into theoretical debates with the instructors, which the other students in the class always got a kick out of. As for the two elective courses, one was helpful because it offered the opportunity to explore, topics of interest, both in the seminar and through a systematic review that I opted to perform for the course assignment. The other elective, however, was largely unhelpful as it had very little to do with my research, but thankfully that's all over now. The other activity I engaged in for the first 6 months of my PhD program was a teaching assistantship or TA-ship. Being a TA is an option, but most students opt for it because it is, paid work. I actually have a full-time job outside of my full-time PhD program, so I don't exactly need the money from the TA work, but I thought it would look good on a resume. That and my advisor recommended it, so that's why I'm doing it. Surprisingly, I took to the TA role quite well. I say surprisingly because I am very much an introvert and tend to avoid human interaction as much as possible. I think my experiences in the professional world really helped me to excel as a TA. So I'm, very grateful for being able to have my feet in both worlds, both the professional world and the academic world. My TA duties were mostly limited to marking student assignments, proctoring exams, meeting with students one-on-one to go over course content or assignments. And I also gave a guest lecture in one of the courses that I TA'd for as well. And that about sums up the first 6 months of my PhD program. If someone is interested in hearing more about a PhD program or has something specific they would like to ask about graduate studies, then feel free to ask in the comments. Okay, now on to some recent Mac gaming news, and I say recent, but what I really mean is, over the past month or two, because I haven't made a video in a long time, so oops. So first up, some really recent news. In fact, a big game has launched on the Mac App Store, Honkai Impact 3rd. It is a sci-fi action adventure game developed by HoYoverse, the same group that develops the immensely popular Genshin Impact, which many Mac gamers have been, desperately hoping will come to Mac at some point. What makes Honkai Impact such a major release, though, is that it sort of signals that HoYoverse might be bringing other games at some point to the Mac platform, including Genshin Impact. Also, given the scale of a mobile game like Honkai Impact, it could signal that other game developers might, now seriously be considering the Mac as a platform of interest. There are many console quality mobile games on iOS and iPadOS that gamers would love to see come to the Mac, and given the developer tools that Apple offers, it's relatively easy to do. But there's some potential reasons for why this hasn't happened yet, which Andrew Tsai detailed in a recent video of his, so I'll link that down below if you're interested. But the takeaway is that Honkai Impact is an important Mac release, and it may signal more console quality mobile games coming to the platform in the near future. Personally, I would love to have Genshin Impact, Diablo Immortal, and MapleStory M come over to the Mac platform.
Why not try your hand
Now to jump over to some earlier Mac gaming news. So back in March, Mac gamers were surprised to see a game sale on the Mac App Store with many big titles available for limited time discounts, such as Death Stranding, Lies of P, Resident Evil, and Stray. As far as I can recall, this is the first time that several console quality games have gone on sale at the same time on the Mac App Store, with Apple explicitly advertising it as such. That said, this is also the first time that several console quality games have actually been available on the Mac App Store at all. I was considering picking up Death Stranding during the sale, but after watching some gameplay, which really makes it out to be, like a walking simulator, I just couldn't pull the trigger on it. But nonetheless, this Mac game sale was a pretty big deal because it signals Apple's attention on Mac gaming and suggests that similar sales, might come in the future. I buy all of my Mac games via the Mac App Store because I like that the purchases are tied to my existing Apple account. I like that it doesn't require a launcher, and I think they perform better when downloaded from the Mac App Store. However, the biggest downside of the Mac App Store is that games rarely, if ever, go on sale, unlike Steam, where games are going on sale nearly all the time. So hopefully this signals a shift in Apple's ethos around Mac games and sales. I also want to shout out Disney Dreamlight Valley on Mac as well. This game seems to get updates on like nearly a monthly basis, and a lot of them are to add free content. For example, back in late February, early March, the developers launched the Laugh Floor update, which added an abundance of new Monsters Inc. content. And then just a few days ago, they launched the Thrills and Frills update, which brings new PCs and buildings and outfits and whatever else. Disney Dreamlight Valley, it isn't a game that I, particularly enjoy given my own interests, but the ongoing support it gets is worthy of praise, especially on the Mac platform, where the player base is likely, quite small, especially compared to other platforms. So hats off to Disney and Gameloft for their continued support. Since the release of the M1 chip in 2020, Apple's interest in Mac gaming has really shifted for the better. It still feels like everything is progressing rather slow with, prominent releases happening infrequently, but all of these little things like the Mac game sale, it signals a new direction for Apple, and it makes this an exciting time to be a Mac gamer. Okay, I'll keep this next topic quick. Just wanted to let you know that I'm starting a new hobby, journaling, as in with like a pen and paper. Over the years, I've tried to keep a journal on my iPhone using apps like Day One or Apple's own journal app, which recently launched, in fact, but I never stick with it. So I'm hoping that a physical journal will keep me, better motivated. As for why I want to journal, it's because there are several benefits associated with it. For example, a research study published in 2016 found that nurses who journaled were better able to manage their job stress, had increased compassion towards their patients, and decreased overall fatigue and likelihood of burnout. In other words, journaling has mental health benefits. But also, journaling has been shown to increase productivity. A research study in 2020 found that college students who identify as procrastinators were better able to identify the causes of their procrastination and were then motivated to make short-term and long-term changes to overcome that procrastination while engaging in reflective journaling. And, as someone who identifies as a procrastinator himself, those are some compelling findings. So, in addition, everything today is digital. In fact, I spend about a third of every day typing on the computer, which means, I'm almost never engaging in writing. And it's something that I miss. I find writing can be very relaxing. To begin my journaling journey, I picked up the Midori 3-year journal and a set of disposable Zebra Sarasa gel pens. just to get me started. Since I don't know much about stationery or journaling, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos by JetPens, which I'll link their channel in the description. They've been really helpful in deciding what I should get. If I stick with the journal, then my next investment will be, some sort of professional pen, possibly a fountain pen, though I'm not too crazy about the extra maintenance involved with those. I will be making some journaling videos in the near future, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested. And now on to our last topic of the video, the upcoming Apple events. There are 2 upcoming events. One is in a couple days, depending on when I get this video out, on May 7th. The other is WWDC on June 10th. I can't remember the last time Apple had 2 events so near each other on the calendar. It makes me wonder if they were initially planning on showing everything during WWDC, but it would have been too lengthy, and thus they decided, let's schedule a smaller event a month earlier to get some of the hardware announcements out of the way. Or perhaps, they always had this schedule of events in mind. I'm not sure. WWDC is typically where Apple shows off their new software and operating systems, so we can expect a look at the new iOS and iPadOS and macOS and tvOS, etc., etc. The big rumor this year is that Apple is finally going to talk about what they have been working on with regard to AI. Most are speculating that AI will be a prominent feature of Apple's future software. Personally, I just hope it means that Siri becomes more useful and reliable. I have a few Apple HomePods around the home, and I've paired them with 2 Philips Hue lights, and I'll constantly ask Siri to turn on the lights, at least once a day, but it only works maybe 50 to 75% of the time the first time that I ask, which it really drives me insane. The HomePods, they hear me, I can see them lighting up, but then they do nothing a lot of the time. So some major improvements to Siri would be much appreciated. Other than that, there isn't really anything I'm too desperate for software-wise. I would like to see some improvements to the mail and calendar applications, I guess. Maybe make them a bit more professional, borrow some features from Microsoft Outlook, perhaps. And the Notes app is one of my most used applications, and at times it feels sort of bare bones, so I would like some updates to it, maybe bring it more in line with third-party note apps like Evernote and Bear. What I don't want to see at WWDC is a plethora of new social type features for things like photos and messages. It always seems to be discussed ad nauseum, and the last thing I need is more stickers or fancy text message effects. As for this upcoming event on May 7th, the rumors speculate new iPad Pros, iPad Airs, Apple Pencils, and other possible iPad accessories. So essentially it's an iPad event. My 2020 iPad Air is one of my most used devices. And though it's now, 3+ years out of date, what I use it for mostly, which is watching YouTube or Netflix or sports, that doesn't really warrant me updating it. However, with the amount of console quality games releasing on iPadOS lately, like Call of Duty Warzone and the Resident Evil games, Devil May Cry and Warframe, all of which only work on an iPad with an M chip, I believe, which my iPad Air does not have, it does sort of make me want to upgrade. But then there's the question of whether these games will be available on Mac at some point. Resident Evil already is, but what about the others? If they do come to Mac, then I don't really need an iPad with an M chip yet. So something to think about while I'm watching the event. The future Apple hardware I am most excited for, though I'm not sure when or if it will be shown off this year at all, are new AirPod Pros, a 10th generation Apple Watch, and this rumored Apple Ring. I don't currently own AirPod Pros. I have AirPods, but I am interested in the AirPod Pros because I prefer over-ear headphones to in-ear AirPods. They're just more comfortable. The only reason I never pulled the trigger on the AirPod Pros was because of the Lightning connector. Once Apple changes that to USB-C, I'll be all over them. As for the Apple Watch, this will be the 10th generation of the product, I think. Pretty sure it's the 10th generation of the product. So it's likely to feature a new design. Some people are speculating that it will be flatter, more like the Apple Watch Ultra. Some are even thinking maybe even a bit more round. Personally, I would like something that looks more professional, more like an analog timepiece that looks appropriate in an office setting. And lastly, this rumored Apple Ring. So I own an Aura Ring, but after the first couple months, I stopped wearing it. In truth, I actually really like the idea of a ring as a health tracking device, as I find it much less obtrusive. In practice, though, it leaves much to be desired. My two biggest complaints were that it couldn't be worn while lifting weights because I was constantly worried that it was going to break, especially with heavy weights. And the other thing is that it didn't breathe well. So moisture would get stuck under the ring and cause sort of like a mini rash if you don't remove it regularly or swap it to another finger. If Apple could improve on what Aura Ring has, and for it to essentially do all of what the Apple Watch does, then it would, I would opt for the ring over the watch for health tracking. And then I would start wearing an analog timepiece when out of the home instead. So, fingers crossed for that, pun intended. And that's it for this video. The next one I'm planning on making is a look at the recent update to MapleStory M on iPad, which launched a new class of character, which I want to try out. Even after 15 years, I still have this itch every so often to play MapleStory, and seeing as I don't have a Windows-based PC, MapleStory M is the only option I have. So, look forward to that. But until then, happy gaming and reading and puzzling or journaling or, whatever else you like to do to rest and recharge. And I will see you again next time. See you later.